Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Alex Bonilla.
Hello.
Maddie Potter.
Hey there, baby girl.
Oh no. And usually it's Alex with the and Sarah Dolman.
Hi.
Whose line was that?
That was Micah's. He was talking to Glimmer.
No.
Very much worse out of context.
Yeah, the way you said that is so much worse.
No, he said it like that. That was the read from him. It was so bad.
Yeah, but he's in like evil form, right? Okay.
It's still bad.
Okay, Maddie's been chipped. We'll see what happens. We're once again talking the She-Ra and the Princess of Power season 5 series finale. The whole last season that came out on Netflix on Friday. We had a first initial reactions podcast on Friday as well, and we'll be getting some new perspectives on the season as a whole and everything that happened in this podcast. Check us out at overlyanimated.com. All of our previous She-Ra podcasts, including that previous season 5 discussion. Search for Overly Animated She-Ra, all of that. And we are going to be getting into spoilers right away, so make sure you have seen all of season 5 of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. Then come back and listen. Full spoiler warning for the entire show. Okay. Let's start. We have some topics we want to get into, but we can just start by what are your thoughts on the season? If it's still, it's within the last few days for all of us, but what were your reactions as you were watching, and kind of just how do you feel about it as a whole? Alex, I think you were definitely first of this group to finish on Friday. What did you feel at the time? How are you feeling about it now?
Yeah, I binged it Friday morning as my duty as a She-Ra supporter. And I will say that I had a lot of fun with the season. I enjoyed Horde Prime. I enjoyed seeing the relationships that had been broken slowly be reformed and reconciled. But let's face it, the headline is the finale, right? And my reaction to that was one that I don't think I've ever experienced when we're going to spoilers immediately, right?
Yes.
So Catra and Adora is happening, right? I'm sitting cross-legged on my couch, like, oh my god, this is happening. This is actually happening. And then they kiss, and I just had an uncontrollable 3 minutes, 4 minutes of laugh crying, and I kind of had to rewind the whole end of that episode because it really mentally broke me into wow.
In a good way?
In a good way. The fact that it's laughing and crying, it's oh my god, it actually happened. And why does this feel so emotionally cathartic to me? It's, I ship on this podcast. We've talked shipping a lot, including ships that we'll get to later. But this is the first time ever that I was this emotionally affected by the culmination of a relationship getting there. And to the point where I did a rewatch of at least the quote important episodes of the season, or at least the ones that I enjoyed the most. And when I rewatched the finale, I still there's still an uncontrollable feeling that wasn't as strong as the first time, but it's still, when it happened, I was wow. It just your brain goes racing. And I think that's a testament to just how well this show's final season ends up justifying that moment, or building us up there on top of the foundation that we've done in the previous seasons. And so that is the cherry on top of what ends up being just a really strong season for completing all of these relationship dramas, which is the basis of She-Ra, right? It's seeing Adora and Glimmer and Bow and Catra all interact with each other and manage through their problems with the backdrop of this whole magic defeats robot society in space thing. That feels such a second thought compared to how our main characters are dealing with each other, and that's so. It continues that down to the very end, and I think it does it as successfully as any show could. And it's a buzz that I'm still riding high off of, and I It's just interesting because I didn't expect it to come from She-Ra. Like I would have expected to feel this way with Steven Universe, but this is like even above that. So that's why I'm like, this is gonna be a lot to work through today.
Is this our She-Ra therapy session? Okay.
Maybe.
Oh, no.
I want to figure it out.
Alex likes She-Ra more than Steven Universe confirmed. You heard it here first. During his thoughts. Okay. I didn't think I'd hear that.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Also, you were like, I ship. I was like, okay, you mean She-Ra? No, you were talking about you ship in general. Like you ship things, and this is the biggest reaction you've had. That's pretty crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And I didn't even know. And I don't even think this is a ship you were particularly talking a lot about. I mean, we talk a lot about it, but a lot of us we're on the Glimmer and Bow train coming in. I think, including you. So that's an interesting reaction from Alex. Yeah, we'll and yes, that's why we need to have the therapy session. We'll break it down. Okay, Maddie, you just finished She-Ra.
Yes,
season 5.
As I do. You
seem composed compared to Alex, who was laugh crying the whole time. So what's your emotions right now?
My emotions are a little more complex. I'm just gonna say I'll talk about Catra and Adora later. Like I love Catra and Adora, and I'm very gay, and I love how gay they are. But just to give a little variety here, I haven't got a chance to really say anything about She-Ra yet. Because
you are a new She-Ra fan.
Yeah, I watched the whole show. I when I say I binged the show, I didn't just binge season 5. I binged all 5 seasons coming up to this. I watched them.
Not
all
this weekend though.
In the last month, I've been watching them. It's been one of my quarantine shows, and so I was just. In general, She-Ra, I just really the plot has been okay. But the emotion and the character interactions have always been really incredible. And I think this final season really doubles down on that in a lot of ways. And I really loved a lot of the ways the characters interact. I really loved that they really went really hard with characters saying I love you to each other. And which I think that characters don't say that enough to each other, partners or otherwise, on shows like this. And it felt really good. It felt really cathartic, those moments. It was also kind of only really the Seahawk one didn't really hit well for me, but the rest of them just really hit really well, and I liked it. And I just felt kind of warm and happy in a way that was kind of similar to Steven Universe, which is very impressive. But also there was just a lot more other thoughts going on, so I couldn't just focus on that happiness. There was just a lot of things on my mind specifically, like the way Catra's arc was going, the way some of the things we touched on at the end of Adora's arc, and some of the things we touched on with Shadow Weaver really hit home for me. And the rest of it kind of, not that it wasn't I wasn't focused on it, but it kind of fell to the background for me. Because the things I cared about were Catra, Adora, and Shadow Weaver in the last 3 episodes. And that's pretty much it. I didn't really care about anything else happening.
Yeah, I think they were the focus. So
yeah, and I don't really mean that in a bad way to the rest of the plot. I just mean that I cared about them so much that I did not really want to focus on anything else. I wanted to know, not just the relationship between Catra and Adora. I wanted to know where they ended up as people.
Okay. Yes, I'm interested to get your thoughts on that with Catra and Adora. That'll probably be our first topic, so we'll come back to that.
Yeah, I'll have a chance. I'll have a chance to gush about the gay.
Okay, gushing. Okay, I'm glad it's we're getting the positive. I mean, I assume we'll get the positive Catra and Adora takes, and we heard a lot of that on our first podcast as well. So, if you want additional context for other reactions, check out the first podcast. But Sarah, what were your reactions to watching the final season?
So I was kind of feeling a little iffy about this last season before I watched it. I was I'm not really sure what they're going to be doing with everyone's arcs and the relationships, the ships, all of that. But I found myself really drawn in as I started watching, and I didn't want to stop. I tried to spread it out so I wouldn't be binge watching, because generally that's not what I like to do. But I just didn't want to stop because I was so engaged in how the plot was moving. I thought the pacing was really great overall. I thought there were so many wonderful emotional moments. I thought it was just absolutely stunning to look at. this season. Like, they really raised the bar with just, once they opened up Etheria into the rest of the galaxy, it's like, everything can just be super beautiful and stars and rainbows, and that was wonderful. Another thing that I was sort of iffy about, which I'm sure we will get to, is like I've never really been a Catra and Adora shipper. I've always been a Glimmer and Adora. And so I was kind of like, I don't really know what they're going to do with this. I ended up the season feeling okay, so I'll leave it at that. But I overall thought it was a really, really great, strong final season.
Nice. Yes, and we can get into all these different Catra and Adora reactions, I'm sure. Yeah, and I give most of my thoughts on the first podcast, but still feeling really good about this last season, and it's been fun seeing all the fan reaction. We've gotten a lot of Noelle interviews. I'll give some tidbits from those as we hit on certain subjects. But it seems like everyone's been really positive and excited by the last season. I mean, it's like a landmark like queer representation season and moment, and it's like that combined with this beloved show ending, and so it's been just really cool seeing everyone react to everything, and probably very good rewatchable season and stuff too. I think some of us started getting to a little bit of that, but let's we can start with Catra and Adora at the top. I mean, we talked a lot about it first podcast. It's kind of like a prevailing theme that might go through other topics we would discuss here too, but right off the bat, I think just like how everyone reacted to Catra and Adora, how they felt about it. I think something we can start with Maddie for like because apparently, like I don't know Maddie's She-Ra takes because she just watched it. But so you said you were into Catra and Adora the whole time watching the season. So maybe you can give us the Catra and Adora shipper coming into the season perspective and like how it played out watching the season.
I think it flowed really well because like I watched all the seasons in a row, so I got probably a very unique take on that for the recent like bingers because I got to see all of it in a row with fresh eyes, and Catra and Adora just felt inevitable the whole time. It felt in a way that was like, but again, it's just like, is it gonna happen though? Is it?
Yeah, like explicitly.
And I'm just happy that like it actually happened because the text of the show was always, it's inevitable that Catra needs to be able to admit to Adora that she likes her, and then it became clear later in this season specifically that it was actually she admit that she loves her, and that was clear from I think like a few episodes into season 1 of this show, and they paid it off so beautifully and so. I don't know, and just such like this, like the only word I can think of is loving manner, and it's just so beautiful to see this character who's like trying to work through all these things, finally being vulnerable to the person that she likes more than anything, and it's just so. It just kind of melts me just seeing Catra being able to take down her walls like this, and Adora is kind of reacting the same way. She's reacting in like finally you're here kind of way almost. And it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, so very like positive emotion seeing it play out, like surprise at it being actually explicit at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that surprise thing went away by the time I got to episode 11. By episode 11, I was pretty sure it was happening.
Right, like when you watch the season, I feel like it's obvious Catra and Adora is happening by like episode 5.
Yes.
But it's like, where are we going? I guess specifically.
Yeah, how explicit are we going to be? And then by episode 11, it became clear like their thing is the core of the finale, and so we're going to do something here.
Yeah, you're right. They get the A plot of like this finale arc. The season really focuses in on Catra and Adora in a way, which there are some seasons Catra's certainly not the secondary lead of the show and stuff like that. So like he really focuses down on it. That's good. Yeah, Alex, what's so coming in not as explicit of a Catra and Adora shipper, but you have this big reaction. Like, walk through that. What's is the reaction to the ship? Are you like on like so we had interesting Delaney like. Big Glimmer and Bow shipper in the first podcast, she says she jumped on board Catra and Adora as the season went on. So is it that type of thing, or is it a reaction to like the themes and the emotions of what's happening?
I'd say my pre-season 5 feelings towards Catra and Adora were like, I can sense that this is probably Endgame, but I'm not that excited about it. Like, it'll happen, and whatever. Like, that's been from season one, but so we'll just see how it goes. So I was just kind of like a hands-off thing. I was more interested in other ships, like in Entrapta or whatever, than it was in
More interested in Entrapta. Okay.
Yeah. There's more layers there, But
Sure.
Like an onion.
But season 5, what it does is that it finally lets Catra take a step to change, and I think that that's been the barrier, as I think you've talked about too in previous season discussions, where it gets hard to sympathize with Catra at various points during the show because she's in full on with the evil side mode, and there's not really remorse going on. But you get the breaking down to rock bottom last season, and then here, you're seeing her finally take her steps towards realizing that she can make her own decisions for good, beginning with saving Glimmer, and then slowly integrating into the best friend group, and that means a lot to being able to ship someone. And now you get to a place where the Catra and Adora share different shared backgrounds, but are also now finally on the same wavelength of what to do going forward. One thing, in addition to the vulnerability thing that Maddie talked about, another thing that hit me is just the beauty of Catra and Adora both needing to bring things to the table for each other. In this case, Adora brings to Catra, look, you need to display care for other people. You need to help them out if you have the power with you. But Catra also brings to the table, hey, look, you can't keep doing this thing where you have to fix problems of everyone and only you can do it. You need to let other people in. That's been Adora's character struggle since season 1, and Catra is also in on this, but now she's finally in a place where she's emotionally close enough to have that mean something to Adora. And so the fact that both of them are dealing with their own issues, and they both end up kind of meshing together by the finale. You have a Catra making these sacrifices to get Adora to the heart of Etheria, and then you have Adora as well, finally letting Catra in to those intimate moments, and lead up to the kiss and all. But I guess it's that part that really gets me, just seeing how Catra slowly changed over the course of the season, while also seeing the effect on Adora, finally getting her friend back, and at the same time needing that final push to learn the lesson that she's been working with for this entire show. So all of that really helped make that moment feel as cathartic as it did.
Great, yeah, and we've talked about the themes in the finale, and how that relates to both their characters. I think that's great.
It's not even just the finale; it's the whole season is about their the first episode heavily starts on Adora's that thing we were talking about that Adora ends on this season. It starts there, and it starts with Catra. Wow, I lost the words. Adora starts with helping everybody to the point of hurting herself, and Catra starts at the point of not being willing to tell Glimmer that she's lonely. Just this simple thing of they're both prisoners, and she can't even tell the other prisoner that she's lonely too. And that feels like the whole season is about that. They really wanted to make sure that you were aware of the things they needed to, the point they needed to reach by the end of the season.
Nice, yeah. It feels. We'll get to this Catra arc, but first, Sarah, any Catra thoughts to share as hardcore Glimmador coming in? How does that perspective react to the events of the whole season?
Okay, I think but when I finished the show, and I also kind of I saw the writing on the wall. It's not I was until the last second Glimmador could still happen. I can see what's happening, and it's and I finished, and I was I didn't hate it, and like, and in fact, like it's an ending that I can accept, which is not something I necessarily could have predicted, I would say, coming into the season. And like, I mean, I have to admit, like, a big part of it is just my, you know, big sappy queer heart just can't resist the big gay rainbows and sunshine, and like how can one not love that? And I mean, it's also, you know, they went with a, you know, big happy warm fuzzy ending, which is definitely something that I gravitate towards in most cases, instead of something that was like dark and cynical, and so that I appreciated that, and I also feel like, you know, Catra herself, you know, the journey that she went on, I felt like she was, you know, a lot more likable this season and more sympathetic than in previous seasons, and I like, you know, so I can accept that it happened, and I can appreciate it, and I can absolutely appreciate the incredible step forward in representation. I also think that, like, I didn't recently watch the previous seasons, but like it feels like to me, for me, in the context of the whole show, I still have a lot of concerns about their relationship that would prevent me from being like fully on board, like, yay, Catra and Adora, this is the best. And I think it just really stems from how much I didn't like Catra's actions in the previous seasons, and also a lot of concerns about how intensely the relationship was affected by Shadow Weaver. Shadow Weaver basically created the relationship between Catra and Adora to be something that wasn't supportive between them, where Catra is feeling like she's constantly inferior to Adora and can never do anything right, and Adora feels like she always has to prove herself and she's responsible for Catra. And like, I did kind of still see that in a lot of ways play out in this season, where, you know, Adora felt like she still had to go back and save Catra. You know, yes, on one hand because she loves Catra, but, you know, it's also that sense of responsibility instilled in her. And the Catra kind of always her motivation being Adora and what Adora thinks, and wanting Adora to like her and love her. And that's not all necessarily a bad thing. I think it could potentially, you know, create problems in their relationship. And so, I mean, you know what? I'm on board with Catra Adora, where they both go to therapy and also possibly couples therapy. Is that a fair, fair conclusion?
They really need therapy.
I mean, I think everyone would agree everyone needs therapy after,
Yeah.
even after all the cathartic happiness at the end of the
Like,
season.
And I would say specifically with regards to that final point, I think part of why, another reason why the final moment feels so cathartic is it's preceded by watching Shadow Weaver die. I think, like, the fact that that kind of marks like their final separation from Shadow Weaver, at least in terms of her influence on their lives. Because even as recent as the episode right before, where like she's doing her whole manipulative junk towards Adora, like, you gotta separate yourself from Catra, he's messing with your powers and all. So like, Shadow Weaver, if she was gonna hang around, that was always gonna be an issue. So the fact that tie is finally cut for good, it feels like, okay, you can finally begin moving forward from this. So while I agree, like there's underlying issues that may still need to be resolved, but I do think that it's helped by the fact that we finally get rid of that factor from the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely agree that, like, having Shadow Weeder, I keep saying Shadow Weeder.
Shadow Weeder. Is it evil Perfuma?
No, I you know, I think it's just the nature of the sort of the dynamic of the relationship, where there's, like, you know, yes, there's all of that love and that romantic and all that other kinds of tension being there, while also there being the all of those really difficult, complicated feelings with them too. And like, those can exist in a relationship, and I just don't see them necessarily just like going away on their own, even with Shadow gone.
Yeah, Maddie, what do you think of this type of discussion of where Catra Adora ends up?
I think it's hard. it's hard for me to talk about without getting into really the Catra stuff altogether.
Yeah, we can
overall.
transition to that too.
Okay, because I think that I've seen a little bit. I haven't really gotten the chance to like look on a lot of the fandom stuff, but I've seen that people thought that Catra's arc went a little fast, went a little bit sudden, and it definitely was rushed in terms of a pacing thing. But in terms of I think, realistic movement forward of a person, in terms of like moving past this trauma, trying to move forward, I'm not that surprised by it. I'm not that surprised by the things Catra does this season or the times that she does them, because a big part of trauma, a big part of moving past abuse is deciding to leave behind the person who abused you and deciding to reach out to a new support system. And once you have done those two things, your recovery actually speeds up. It's not like it goes away instantly. Your stuff is still there, but it's a lot easier to shoulder those things when you don't have your abuser over your shoulder and you have an actual group of people who are there for her. And by the time we reach episode 5, Shadow Weaver is not shown up in Catra's life all season, and Catra episode 6, I'm sorry. And Catra is with the group, the best friend squad, as they call them. And you can see that Glimmer and Bow are suspicious of her, but they are starting to see that Catra is really just a hurt person and needs to be shown that people can be nice in a way that was similar to how Scorpia was helped last season. And once you have those things, like I'm saying, it makes sense to me, this progression. I dislike the way Shadow Weaver died on a personal level, like not on a storytelling level. I think that's Shadow Weaver's character, that she thinks that she could do this to Catra, that she could say she's proud of Catra that die. But the fact of the matter is she's still evil and she's still awful. And even if she saved Catra once, that doesn't make up for everything bad she did. And I'm sure Catra is dealing with a lot of stuff because of that, because of the way Shadow Weaver did this. And she's going to have to deal with a lot because of the way Shadow Weaver left her. But she's gone now. And that means so much for her mental health, as morbid as that is. And so I think that they will be generally Catradora. To answer the question, I think Catradora will be moving forward, be moving towards a healthier relationship and healthier people on their own. Because again, her abusers are gone. So it could only go up now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we tying in a few things here, and we can talk about Shadow Weaver at this point too, which we have additional context from. I think it all it all ties together in these last few episodes. I think it's all very relevant. Additional context from Noelle, who says that Shadow Weaver dying was not a redemption. It was not a redemption arc or anything for Shadow Weaver. So I think that's the intent. I think in Shadow Weaver's mind, I think Noelle's talked about this. She's been a good guy for a while in her mind, and she's this is probably a redemptive arc in her mind. But obviously, like, that doesn't reflect reality. So I think that was not the intended storytelling thing there. But
which thing? The that she's not redeemed at the end?
Just her sacrificing herself. Yeah, I think it's that's not what the show's going for. Yeah. You think
so? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to make sure you're clear, because there's a couple double negatives there. You're saying that you think the show is trying to show that she is redeemed.
No, not redeemed.
No. Okay. So, sorry. I'm sorry.
It's just this character beat for this really complicated, toxic character that has we've been waiting for something to. A lot of people have been waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it kind of never does, and it's really interesting. That she does.
Yeah, like the way I see the Shadow Weaver death is that this final season shows that, like, she can't turn herself off. Like, she's gonna be this kind of manipulative person forever. When I rewatched it, I was amazed by that sequence when they're going towards the failsafe, and like, she has the nerve to be like, "Oh, if only there was stronger magic in your family, straight against this fella and Glimmer." But that's just kind of who she is. Like that
wouldn't make more sense, because that's like an old grudge.
Well, right, but like overall, like, the person doesn't seem to have any interest in changing. So the way she goes is like I just need to get this done. I have finally got it into my head that Adora is only going to do this with you, so I give up. I'm just gonna live my life just to let the power go through. But like that, there's no, and she ends it with that like you're welcome, as if like she's doing she's like making a good action, whereas like it's kind of just the only action she can take, but like she has to be on top in her mind. So I just particularly I enjoy Shadow Weaver's character in this season just because like there are these people that like no matter what they're just gonna keep going on their ways, and if that's the way you gotta that felt like the most efficient way to get rid of her and let us move forward, and her still feeling in her mind that she's doing the right thing, which has been the thing for the whole season. But like I Shadow Weaver as abusive mom down to the end, and good riddance.
Yes, same.
Yeah, I like Shadow Weaver even when she's like taking her good fight, and it is like a good action at them, but she's like so selfishly based, and she's hamming it up selfishly at the end, even through that. Yeah,
and I think it's important to note that she did this, like you were saying, Alex. She did this because she realized that she can't stop Catra and Adora being together, and it's not that she's like agreeing with it and saying like, yes, this is good, do this. She's saying she's admitting defeat. She's not admitting that they were right. That's a very different thing. She's admitting that she can't win, not that she has lost. And so she's trying to change the game, which is what abusers do. And she changed it to this, where she's like, you have to see me in a good light now. Or that's what she's trying to tell to them. You have to see me as like, I sacrifice myself. That's who I am now. And
I think she's been trying to like repair her image. Like she's been wanting people to see her as a good guy for a while. Yeah.
Because that's how these people are. These people want, like, because as messed up as Shadow Weaver is, she wants those people. She wants people like Catra in her life. She wants people like Glimmer in her life. She needs that because she needs people to look up to her, and she's just like this. And that is the whole problem, and she doesn't get that. And she probably never would have, even if she lived on.
Nice. I think it's a good summary of what Shadow Weaver's character ends up being.
There's also that line in the failsafe episode where she's like, I know I made a mistake a while ago. I paid for it. I don't know why you guys keep bringing it up. Like,
oh yeah, that's the other thing. Minimizing her own mistakes.
That's kind of like demonstrating, like, she doesn't really care about the consequences of her actions. She's like, well, past is in the past. Let's move forward. I can be good now, right? Like, not really caring about the effects that her actions have had on people. It's amazing how well. I mean, subtlety is not something that She-Ra wants to do, and I think that it's good that they make it as obvious as possible that she ain't changing.
But I don't think this is even like very. Like this is just how these people are. I don't think they're really like being disingenuous with a character like this. They're just actually throwing a character like this into a show and saying, this is what these people are like. This is what they always are like.
Her name is Shadow Weaver, and she never bothers to change
the names
are. Are you sure it's not Shadow Weeder though?
That she would have been a little nicer if she changed it to Weeder.
I'm ignoring the names.
We don't need to get into the names in this like right after the show's out. Okay.
Yes, we do. It fits into this whole thing where like nothing in this show is subtle, and down to season 5 they like continue to the very end to make its messages as obvious as possible so nobody misses it, which I kind of love about this show.
And clear themes are good.
But Alex, the first episode when Bo showed up with his bow and arrow, I was done. I was done with the names. I gave up on even trying.
Yeah, I wanted to share, like, I found this really interesting piece of analysis on Twitter that a user named F_bank had said. They said, like, they just rewatched the last scene. It was for Shadow Weaver, it was all about Adora for her. She rescued Catra and sacrificed herself so her protege Adora could fulfill her task and Shadow Weaver's goal to use the failsafe and release Etheria's magic. In a sense, a selfish sacrifice. I think her "I'm proud of you" to Catra was her last manipulative lie. She wanted to make Catra feel better about herself so she could help Adora more effectively.
Yep, that's interesting.
Yeah. I feel like this kind of explains, like, I felt like everything about what Shadow Weaver was doing until the last minute, it felt so uncomfortable to me. And I feel like that just explained how, like, it was all felt like it was part of Shadow Weaver has some kind of ulterior motive that you can never really tell what it is, but it's like never like just like a genuine thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that for past seasons, I thought that Shadow Weaver had some bigger plan, but it turns out her plan, quote unquote, was always just her necessity and the necessity of her being in that position, like she was with Catra and Adora. It was never about, like, she never wanted to, like, take control of things and kill everybody. She just wanted people to look at her and realize she was the one in charge. She was the one who did this. She was the one who knew how to do this and is better than everybody. And
she's the one with the power.
Yeah, whether it's the metaphorical power or the actual power, she didn't care. It was never about the heart. It was always about just how everyone viewed her. And I think that in previous seasons, I thought that she definitely wanted to, like, had a villainous plan, and it never was that. It was always just her normal motivations just pushing her forward.
Yeah. Okay. That's a lot of good stuff on Shadow Weaver. I want to get back to Catra, and I'm sure
never.
Would you talk about Catra? Shadow Weaver will come up, but I like what Maddie said earlier about with how Catra, it's like it's enough that like a flip switched in her mind, and she was in a good situation like that. Like on its own, can explain why it was so quick. Like, I thought that was an interesting perspective on it, because I rewatched episode 3, and like. In episode 3, Catra says, "Adora, I'm sorry for everything," when she's talking to Adora on like the intercom or whatever. So like coming into the season, we're like, Catra, like how are we going to do this turnaround in the number of episodes we have? And by episode 3, she says that, like, it's a lot, I think, very quickly. And in the first podcast, we talked about how this whole situation's kind of perfect for Catra and everything that happens, and a big part of it, I think, is like the support system. Yeah, like a Glimmer, Adora, Bow, just kind of accepting her and forgiving her very quickly. I think that's probably a big part of it. We can get everyone's kind of takes on the Catra arc and come back to Maddie too. But Alex, what did you think of how Catra's handled this season? How and I guess I also want to preface. I think this wasn't a redemption arc, so I want to be on the side of the not liking redemption for what Catra's doing here, because I think that doesn't fit with the themes of She-Ra. I think this show has always kind of had a theme that people can be good on the inside even if they're doing bad things. I think that's kind of like a Catra theme, very broadly. So if she just stopped doing bad things, and she's always been good. It's not like she was bad, like I think is what the show is saying. She's just not doing bad things anymore. She doesn't need to be redeemed. She was always good. And like everyone accepts that with her.
She was just taught a different moral system, and she doesn't know how to put that onto other things. And she was conditioned to think other ways. And she was always inherently good at doing things.
So like, it makes sense to me that the show doesn't need to do this big hot, like whatever, showy redemption arc, like with, I think that fits with the type of thing the show's doing.
Because, I mean, they've done it every season. Every season they show, like, when Catra leaves the Horde for some reason, like when she went to the desert and she was kicked out, like, she was thriving. She was doing well, like, every time she leaves. And this
in terms of, like, her environment being, like, the big problem,
Yeah, and I think that, like, this isn't, like, a new thing the show brought up. Like, I think that's why I never felt like it was too fast this season, because, like, this has always been on Catra's mind, not just the viewers.
That's interesting. Alex, what do you think of like this explanation for how quickly Catra's able to turn around this season?
I guess my initial thoughts when I hear that is, like, you have to remember that this isn't exclusive to season 5. Like, I feel if you're looking at the Catra transformation, you begin at latest last season, where like we begin undressing her. Or like she's finally totally alone, and she finally comes to realization, and that's where at her most desperate she makes like terrible decisions. She's put in a place where she can atone for one of her biggest ones, which is like contributing to to Glimmer's mom and all, but like also she's in a place where she can rescue Glimmer, and like that in itself it helps out. And on top of that, you have these people, Glimmer, Bow, and Adora, who are all very open to forgiveness, and that's a quality that I think many shows are making an effort to promote. Steven Universe is a top in this, where like if someone is willing to if somebody is showing that they're making active changes, then no matter what they did beforehand, that's enough to begin allowing them into your circle and supporting them. And like that's just kind of the system that this show and others are promoting, and I think that fits very well with what Catra does in this season. So like I'm open to hearing people who think it's quick, but at least in my sense, I think it's just a matter of the nature of these characters as established in previous seasons, and the fact that like this foundation has been laid for Catra since before this season. So like it's a longer process than what just these 13 episodes.
I think certainly we have the foundation in terms of, and on the other hand, like the other way you look at it, which I don't think the show thematically really does, is Catra wasn't taking morally positive actions until the very end of last season, right? So it is kind of, in that regard, it's quick. But in terms of like motivating emotional factors, I think, certainly we saw a lot of that last season and previous seasons. Sarah, do you have thoughts on Catra's turnaround or Catra's arc this season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think while watching the season it felt rushed to me. I think in a lot of ways, like Catra is just a very like emotionally driven person, and so when the context changes, her emotions and her behaviors will change. And so I think like it kind of made sense as I was watching it. I think and maybe not like her behavior felt rushed, but I do feel like others in general willingness to forgive her or at least accept her felt a bit quick to me. Just personally in my viewing of it, like I think, Catra was responsible for Glimmer's mom being locked away in a hidden dimension for the rest of eternity. And
is that what happened?
and being very, manipulative and saying a lot of really horrible things and, actively trying to hurt and destroy everyone. And I think that, yes, those are bad things, but she also has, a good heart. But I also think that, people that were really hurt by Adora, by Catra, which is a lot of people in the show, I felt like maybe it would have been nice to see some people take a little bit longer to really kind of accept her. And again, and like Catra having to do a bit more like, I don't want to say like atonement, but like, like recognizing and talking through like why the things she did were really wrong and like, where and how she's gonna make it up to people. And I do think, in a lot of ways the show tried to do like show and not tell for that, but I also feel like there was something for me personally that was missing in getting people there. Like, especially like, like Scorpia has such a big heart, but it's like, Scorpia, like she really burned you and you're just like, yeah, oh, it's okay, Catra. Which, makes sense for Scorpia's character, but I also feel protective over Scorpia. So, that's kind of where I'm at.
I think I agree that Scorpia's turn is a little bit too quick. I understand how Glimmer and Bow got there so fast, because the fact of the matter is they are really great friends with Adora, and I am sure that they understand how conflicted Catra makes her feel from before this season, and they understand just how close she is to Catra, and I can understand how they would see what Adora is seeing because they love Adora, and they see that
makes sense,
and that makes sense to me. Like they can see and they can understand that Shadow Weaver's influence on Catra is really what killed. Like Shadow Weaver's who killed Bright Moon. Like it's not Catra who did that, or you know what I mean? And
I don't know if I fully agree with that, because I think Catra is still responsible for her behavior.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance, because like she is her own person, but I get what you're. It's a thing I struggle with too, because like which actions are mine and which actions do I get to blame on things that aren't me? Which actions does a person get to blame on their trauma, and which ones do they get to blame on themselves? Because it's a difficult thing to decide sometimes. Like, is Catra to blame for when she, like, is Catra to blame for like all this stuff happening in the first place? Like, like at the very beginning, because she pushed Adora away in a lot of ways because she couldn't accept that Adora would leave the Horde to begin with.
Yeah.
Or is that Shadow Weaver? Like, whose fault is that?
I think it's really difficult to put the fault on one person in this case. I think that's what you're trying to say. I think it's really nuanced, and I think that everybody involved should take some accountability for
and what I'm
happen.
Yeah, and I think what I'm saying is I think that the characters in the show are not blind to this. They are not blind to the fact that Catra on the inside is just suffering and scared and sad, and that doesn't excuse the things she's done, but they see on some level they see who she is, and they see the person that is just being hurt by Shadow Weaver by the end of the show.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I just want to comment related to being defensive about Scorpia. I need a little help remembering this, but something that stuck in my head was when Perfuma confronted Catra. It was like kind of throwing in her face about how she treated Scorpia versus like what a true friend is. I don't really remember the dialogue of that, but I remember that specifically. It was like, oh, like this is kind of like the most direct anybody's being towards Catra. Right?
Perfuma was the most antagonistic to Catra basically, and then also Frosta punches her.
Oh my god, that punch!
In an anime, if a character is like did something really bad, they have to be punched like that. So that's that was inevitable with Catra. I think a big that whole discussion of like who's to blame and stuff. I mean that's a deeper discussion and stuff. I certainly think Catra's responsible for a lot of her actions. There's a whole season when Shadow Weaver's gone and she's in charge and stuff.
But that doesn't mean that Catra's not being affected by her still.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you though. Like she is responsible.
Cycle of abuse, etc. So it's a difficult discussion. In terms of, I like the point that Adora, like Glimmer and Bow, are going to default to Adora. I think a big thing here is that Adora is the one hurt most by Catra, and she is just going to innately forgive her because of how much she loves her. So I think like that resolves a lot of things.
Well, I mean, there's a point in when the rescue episode, Taking Control, where like Adora is still kind of hesitant, where like she sees that Catra is still rejecting help, and she's like, I thought you were going to change. Okay, if this is it, and like she's about to walk out, and then Catra like is like, wait, no, like please stay, and like that feels like a turning point in terms of like Adora up to there was like, okay, this isn't changing. Why am I spending time on this? We'll drop you off. But once Catra is finally doing something different compared to previous moments, in this case, like accepting help here, like that sparks a change. But I think that to me that signals like even in rescuing Catra, she isn't at first like totally ready to do forgiveness until she sees that there's some change going on, and I think that helps. That like there's still initial tension before we finish that episode.
And
there's still a lot of tension after the rescue episode. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. There's a tension, but I mean, like, it's hard to say whether the tension is romantic tension or whatever by the point that it's
all romantic tension.
Yeah, I know.
To some extent.
Yeah, but I just think that, like,
you gotta be friends before you can be romance.
It's also a lot easier for people, like, without getting too deep into it, it's a lot easier for Adora to forgive Catra because, one, she's had the same abuser as Catra. So, like, she understands how Catra got there. She understands Catra's faulty logic to do things, so she understands the good inside Catra better than anyone. Like, she can see the lines Catra connects to think that this is right.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense Adora would be first to
Yeah.
forgive her and stuff. Yeah, and I think some people have been saying that, maybe some of the other princesses, there could have been more resistance there. I think the show goes a little fast at that point. And yeah, the Scorpia thing, because they relegate the Scorpia reaction to Catra to the very end. So I think that's the one we don't get a lot of closure on. But it's also, Scorpia, extremely empathetic person. She would have.
Yeah.
She at some point she would embrace her, and maybe they talk through things a lot after that. Maybe that's just the initial reaction. But yeah, I mean, I think like once the season does a great job with the Catra, like selling what's happening with Catra and the entire Catra arc, and it's all feels really good within the season, and like additional context from previous seasons. I think you can, like, when you discuss everything, I think it makes sense. It is, I just think, like, narratively jarring, the character Catra seasons 1 to 4 versus the character Catra this season. I think it's very different. My reaction to Catra is very different. Like, not a Catra fan before. I'm a big Catra fan this season. I think some people not a Catra fan. I'm a fan of her character. I think she's a great character, stuff like that.
Okay, I misunderstood. Gotcha.
Yeah. Just personally, I think there's some people that get pretty caught up in the bad things she's doing, and then other people aren't as much. And there's kind of the two reactions to Catra. And I think she's obviously going to be sort of divisive character to that extent. But it's a big difference, a big difference this season, and it really benefits this season. I could throw this out there. Here's a comment from Justin Petty 7 on our Discord was, wow, can't believe the show would have been this good if Catra was on this side. Because I think everyone's saying, is this the best season? Would the show have been even better if Catra's just good the whole time? Or is it this good because this is the payoff to the struggle before with Catra?
I struggle to see an alternate universe where there's anything with as big of a payoff as this. I will say I enjoy the banter between nice Catra and Adora and Glimmer and Bow. So I can totally see someone being like, man, we get a whole, well, people are asking for an epilogue series, right? Because we gotta want to see even if it's just slice of life stuff between these four people. I want to see how that goes down. So I get the feeling, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything with Catra Adora. It has been the emotional fulcrum of this entire show, so it's kind of hard to envision what the show would be like if Catra was always on this side. Yeah. On top of the fact that our villains, quote unquote, have always been, at least to me personally, have always played second fiddle to the main crew interactions. Hordak, I love Hordak, but an entire show where Hordak is the only stakes, I'm not sure would have held up, No. And even if we skipped ahead to Horde Prime, we'll get to him, but Horde Prime was great this season, but I don't know how long you could sustain that, considering the fact that I don't think that the villains are really the focus of this show.
Yeah, I it'd be a different show. I think there's maybe something there just because they're so successful at writing this Catra dynamic with the best friend squad. Should this have been half the show instead of the last season? So, I think there's something there because it was just really successful.
Yeah. I don't think we should complain that they caught something really good in the last season.
Right. It's a good thing for the last season. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we could say it could be cool, but I mean, they did this really cool thing and I'm just happy accepting it.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty happy with this last season and what it entailed. Yeah, I think that's the conclusion. Quicker, starting to get a little quicker through some other topics. I want to go to Glimmer and Bow here because a lot of us don't know what to make of Glimmer and Bow. So this is I think we have additional context. We get this unexpected romantic culmination with Glimmer and Bow. I'm reading Noelle interviews. She says they wrote the second to last episode with the scene of Glimmer saying "I love you" to Bow. And they didn't know when they wrote it if it was going to be romantic or not, which I think is a shocking thing too. And then when Karen Fukara went to read the line, she's like, is this a romantic line? Should I act this romantically? And then Noelle says yes. She just decides then. So I think that's kind of a crazy story. But it kind of makes sense with, it's not like this is some epic romance story that's culminating. It's these are just two really close people that I guess are romantic at the end. It's just an addendum to their intimacy. That's their general broad intimacy. Alex, I need your reaction to Glimmer and Bow because you are the only person that I remember that initially shipped Glimmer and Bow from season 1. I don't even know.
Wow, you remember that?
I remember because I'm like literally who ships? Alex shipped it in. So you are the expert on Glimmer and Bow. You were celebrating. You're popping bottles. That's what happened.
Do I want to be the only straight person on this pod popping bottles for this straight ship? I'm not sure how that's going to look, Dylan.
You talked to Catra and Adora enough. You're good.
Oh, yeah, I'm safe, right? No, I mean, look, Glimmer and Bow, actually, what's going on here? Season 1 was the strongest Glimbo season. Because, like, it begins with, like, Bow sneaking into Glimmer's window and, like, throwing letters with hearts in it, you know? But then, like, as the show goes on, like, I think that the show does a really good job of making that friendship more, like, throwing kinks in it throughout the show. Especially in these, like, the seasons 3 and 4 where, like, Glimmer is slowly distancing herself, like, as she gets swallowed by the duties of being the queen. And then we get the second half of the last season where, like, Bow finally is, like, had enough of Glimmer and it's like, you're making the wrong decisions. Why are you letting this in? So, honestly, the show had thrown me for a loop to the point where, like, I think on the Discord, like, I had a list of of ships I had like chances the kissing from. I did not list Glimmer and Bow because, like, we've gotten to this stage where it's like, well, they're just like really good friends, and this season will be them like getting to slowly coming to terms with Glimmer's actions. Glimmer's apologizing, and Bow will be okay with it. It's like that's all I was hoping for. I didn't expect us to return back to season 1 levels of, oh wow, they're romantic after all. So it took me by surprise because, like, I think that the show had done a really good job of not focusing on the romance sides of that. Even though, like, I think if you go back to previous seasons, you'll see hints throughout, but that there's so much focus on other relationships that are more overt, like Seahawk and Mermista and Castaspella and Natasa and all. So, like, because those are so overt, Glimmer and Bow stayed under the radar. But yeah, I was happy, but also surprised. Even though, like, once upon a time I shipped it, but the show gave me a good swerve. It really did.
Okay, even Alex is surprised by this ending. Okay, I think everyone's going to be surprised considering the story, production story. So, like, they were surprised.
It happened.
Maddie, having watched the whole show recently, is Glimmer and Bow make sense as a narrative through line throughout the series?
No.
Okay.
What? No, it
They
makes
are definitely just close friends the whole time. Like, even when, like, Glimmer was gonna take Bow to Princess Prom, it really read like, I just want you as a buffer between me and, like, having to go alone. That was all it was. And
yeah, there are different readings of the season. Alex said the season 1 stuff was romantic. I think a lot of people saw it more as close friends type things. But certainly there was more intimacy in season 1.
There definitely was. I agree.
Prom and Glimmer is jealous. Like, I don't know.
There's the whole
That's a
jealousy
classic
thing.
ship thing.
No, I agree, but the way the show presented and the way Glimmer acted didn't read as romantic jealousy. You can be jealous of people without having it be a romantic feeling. And also, they really hit home that Bow is is in some way attracted to men, because he was very attracted to some of the men that they came across in their journey.
Seahawk.
Seahawk specifically was a lot.
Yes. I was disappointed no Bow Seahawk ending. I was the shipping that. But I love the Seahawk Mermista. We're going to talk 30 minutes about Seahawk Mermista.
Can I get the perspective of a Glimmadora fan on Glimmer and Bow?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I would say Glimmadora had more romantic build-up than Glimmer and Bow.
I never saw any romance
Agree.
between
I'm
them.
raising my hand.
Yes, Sarah, please.
Yes, well, Sarah, yeah. So not only Glimmadora, but number 1 Glimmer stan. Like, do you think do you like this ending for Glimmer being ending up with Bow? And then also, if you want to lead this into other Glimmer thoughts from the season on her arc.
Yeah, I don't know. My response when I saw Glimmer and Bow had their little moments with the I love yous and all that, I texted Dylan and I was like, seriously, they're doing Glimmer and Bow? I was just like, they're doing this? Like, why? Like, it doesn't have to happen. Like, I'm not like angry about it, but I also feel like like clearly the show was about Catra Adora, but in my heart I wanted it to be about Glimmer Adora, and I'm sorry if that makes me delusional, but that's the way I felt. And like I felt like there was just so much more of Glimmer and Adora's relationship that was developed throughout the show compared to like Glimmer and Bow or any other relationship with Glimmer. And so like Glimmer and Bow just feels kind of like whatever, and
But it's not a negative reaction.
It's not I don't hate it. It's just like, okay, I guess they're doing this. That's fine, whatever. But I do feel like Glimmer had some good moments in this season, but I felt like it was not the strongest season for her in terms of her arc, because they really, focused on Catra and Catra Adora. And so I was a little bit disappointed in that, and I was sort of disappointed too in what they did with her and her dad. Like I didn't really love that like he was like a clone half the season, and so like that was sort of how the relationship dynamic was, like it's not even him. And I kind of, they had that episode with Frosta and Micah to kind of be like Micah's being a new dad again. But I kind of wanted more of like a Glimmer Micah arc this season, rather than wasn't really any kind of interpersonal arc with Glimmer, I felt. Except for maybe a little bit with Catra. Like a little things here and there, but not really anything particularly strong. And definitely not as strong Glimmer and Bow as it could have been if that's what they were wanting to lead up to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it comes across, I think, how it happens is more of just a throw-in at the end versus this culmination, I think. The Micah when Glimmer's fighting Micah in the finale, is this like a big thematic thing of her working through all of her parents' issues and really preparing the relationship with Micah? I don't know. Like, is that what it's supposed to represent? Because it's not him, though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of just feels like mining the parental like the fact that she lost mom, and they're kind of just using clone Micah to be like, oh, you might lose another one throughout the season. Like also when they're sneaking into Mysticor, like they do like moments of her being like scared of Micah, and like they're mining that for emotional stuff, which like it's fine, but like there feels like missed potential with the fact that you bring Micah back from the dead and he doesn't really do much in this season. That Frosta side part just killed me. That's like the one thing I'm like, why is this in this season? I don't need Micah being a figuring out how to be a dad again like that. And it's worse because like you don't get like Micah and Glimmer at the end. Like you get the one like, hi, I'm your dad, and that's it. So like it's not like it even like helped with anything. So
like, I feel like there could have been so much more emotional payoff than there was.
Yeah. So like Micah just feels like the biggest missed opportunity in this season to me, and I feel sad because like I think there's a lot of things you could have done with, especially with his relationship to Glimmer. Yeah. Well, I was gonna say something else about Glimmer. And also with Glimmer, like the last season, it ended with her like seeing the end consequence of shutting out her friends from her decisions, and like all things go all awry, and it doesn't feel like we really address it that much in this season to me. Like it's focused on getting forgiveness from Bow, which is an important thing in itself. But it doesn't feel like we touch much on the fact that she kind of like pushed everybody out. Again, like that's related to the fact that forgiveness is just very it's a lot easier to come by in this relationship. But it just felt weird that like upon return it like focuses just on Bow and not really on everybody else that she kind of affected with that.
Yeah, I agree. And like, especially like I was really disappointed with just how quickly, like, I mean, obviously it's great that Adora, forgave Glimmer, but I felt like there could have been so much more, especially because their relationship was so hugely focused on in the last season with their arguing and, all of that stuff. And I just wanted there to be more payoff to that once Glimmer returned, and there just wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Adora, pretty immediately okay with Glimmer. Adora, very forgiving person.
And like,
is that a good thing?
I think I think Adora is very forgiving because, in a very depressing way, honestly. I don't want to go into all of it, but I think she's just she needs people in a way that's not very healthy, and so she's lucky that Glimmer is so good.
I will say also it's justifiable in that Adora has gone through the same problem throughout the show in terms of doing things on her own and ignoring people. So like she at least knows where Glimmer came from, and she sees that Glimmer's remorseful. It's like, well, I've been through the same. But the show itself doesn't really touch on that in the text, which is kind of a little bit off.
And I think that there's some a difficult thing to mention here is, unfortunately, not everyone in the cycle of abuse gets better with these similar problems gets better. And sometimes you have to leave people behind, and that's really sad. But to get better, you need to not just move past people who are abusing you, but move past people that just can't move past their abusers too. And it hurts a lot. But unfortunately, you're not responsible for every person who's struggling. It's just... I think that Adora could very easily be bit, like you were implying, Sarah, could be very easily bit in the butt by this tendency to forgive people.
She has such a strong sense of personal responsibility for others.
Yeah. And that's how Catra was hurting her for so many seasons. Because the fact of the matter is, whether she loved Catra or not, Catra was the thing keeping her so unhealthy for the first 4 seasons.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But everyone's best friend squad, all good. There you go. That's what the last season's on.
That last shot of them being on the grass together, a final Glimmadora moment, because it's Adora, then Glimmer, then Bow. So Glimmer is right next to her. So,
yay!
Okay, we'll take it, I guess. Oh yeah, also Glimmer Catra, a bunch of that this season, So really, it's just the thruple / four pull, quad pull, whatever. I don't know. That's the real end game, I think.
Quartet, you mean?
OT4?
Is that OT4? Is it a quartet when it's like romantic? Is that how that works?
I don't know, but
let's move forward.
No, I don't want to move forward. No, Glimmer. The thing I love about Glimmer Bow is the show is not afraid to pair the other 2 characters, which shows really hate doing because they think it's convenient. They have the main pairing. They don't want to pair the other 2 people up, but this show was not afraid of it. And as someone who wants everyone to end up together, I was really happy with that. I think it was brave, and they had so many I love yous. That was brave too. As all. That's the best part.
Brave that Kyle and Rogelio ended up together.
Yes, that was brave too, and they adopted a baby. That was also brave, and they gave Seahawk and Marmista the moment, and now everything was great. We saw Seahawk's ex-boyfriends.
My God, yes.
Okay. Anyway,
Marmista's apparently turned on by burning ships. Good for her.
Oh my God,
Marmista, that was the most romantic thing because she tried it for herself. Yeah. And the last couple was Entrapta, which we
ooh la la,
which we also culminated not as explicitly, I guess, as the other ships, but it was in the epilogue type segment. Alex was also popping bottles for this, so tell me how many bottles were popped for Entrapta?
Look, it's a weird situation because on the one hand, I wish we had more of Hordak. I feel like we were kind of robbed of some Hordak stuff here. He gets a little bit in like the final couple of episodes, but it just it's kind of held aside for Horde Prime. On the other hand, we throughout the season we continue Entrapta just being horny for all technology. Like she has a bit of a fling with Darla. Like she's like, we're gonna have some quality time together.
You're really sexual at times.
Yeah, so like she is friends to all technological beings, and so that in itself kind of is like, I don't know if it's like special between Hordak anymore. If she's also like got relationships with all these other.
You could be tech poly.
Yeah. That's true. And of course, like Hordak finding the Entrapta crystal, and he remembers, and that's like and Entrapta gets pulled away by Clifton. Like, remember, your imperfections are beautiful. It's like such an amazing. It's a great callback, and Hordak is being edgy, like, just go away so I can forget these memories, and and so like So like you get the final hug, and it's like we're gonna catch up and all, and like that's fine, but it's at the same time it's like God, the Hordak, like there could have been more, but there's not. So I'm happy for Entrapta, but at the same time, I'm left wanting more, which I'm not really with any of the other ships. Like all the other ships got their due, and Entrapta didn't really. So you know,
considering what Entrapta is, I feel like this was a prominent placement, right?
How dare you?
It just feels like Hordak in general was just kind of always getting the short stick in terms of character development. And it seems like it almost feels like when they set out with this show, it feels like they were going to do more with Hordak, and then just other things were more interesting to cover. And then by the end, by this point, there just wasn't time to go through the Hordak stuff that people were interested in.
Well, yeah, and like I can justify from a story standpoint where like Horde Prime is your new villain, Hordak has been reduced to a pawn. So like it doesn't make sense to focus on Hordak really. So, yeah. Also,
Hordak's, like, quote-unquote, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but Hordak coming out of, like, being controlled by Prime just mirrors Catra's journey already, and I don't think they wanted to just do that beat for beat again.
Yeah, more Hordak. Okay, that was our conclusion from the season.
Yes, give us more Hordak.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough Hordak.
And Entrapta in general, as maybe not her strongest season, but still a very good season for Entrapta. I love when they when we get to see her interaction with the other princesses, and like the princesses like figure out how to appeal to her, but at the same time like treat her like a regular person in spite of her particular focuses. Like the season episode 2 is it ends up really good about that. So I appreciate when Entrapta gets to be with the rest of the cast and not just kind of held off in her own corner.
I really love
a better way to put it is neurotypical, because regular seems a little mean to Entrapta.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, and then the show doesn't get explicit, I think, with that stuff with Entrapta. Yeah, we covered her needing to emotionally consider other people and stuff, and she's just, a lot of. I think it could be like her second best season. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely in the conversation. Like the Entrapta Hordak season is the best, but this could be second best.
There's one season. Oh man, okay.
Yeah, the whole season where they're loud.
Yeah, it was the whole season. Yeah.
Okay, well, we gotta do the Entrapta rewatch. That's the Alex's podcast. Last quick. I mean, we could talk about the Star siblings for a second. They're in episode 4, or
5.
Yeah, and 5. 4. Yeah, and they're you're like, okay, these are gonna be new characters, and they're just in that episode. But think it's seeing more that potentially the brother in the Star siblings was potentially a trans man, as was voiced by one Jewel Star, and also they're referred to as the Star sisters in Princess Prom, although it doesn't really plot wise make sense that would be the same thing that's being referred to, but conceptually that's like, and I think it's just something that exists in the She-Ra canon.
It's just another thing that's just like, obviously I'm happy that there's a trans man here, like this is like, and that's good, but like it just follows that trend of like, if you dig deep you can find these trans characters, but like on the surface they're just not there, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I was, before knowing about Jewel Star, I was gonna say that like this season has so much amazing rep, and last season has great non-binary rep, and I think like as we've talked about at the last year end queer rep podcast, like trans rep isn't really following in these kids shows,
and that's just continuing, and
that's there is this little thing thrown in there, but certainly not nearly remotely as prominent as all the other things.
This mirrors, and I hate to bring it up,
don't
Dylan. No, you're not thinking of it. Mirrors another show we watched this year, and I won't say the name because it's cursed.
In like having a character, but not saying.
Saying it on like social media, or saying it in some way that this person is trans, and that wasn't even this, because like this is just the voice actor is trans, and
people just found this. I don't think anyone said. Like,
and also, and to be fair, his body shape is not the typical masculine form. He has hips that are wider than most assigned male at birth people have. But the problem is that this show is just very good at having a lot of different body shapes in general. And it's hard to tell whether this was on purpose. With the fact that the trans man voices the character, I'm inclined to think yes, that this was on purpose, specifically for this character. And it's, again, frustrating, though, because it's, on the one hand, it's good to have trans characters just showing up, because they're just people. Because, like, a lot of the things, like I've said before in, like, the Queer Rep Pod, like, when you're showing, like, people who have sexualities, it's important to their person. Like, it's easy to show externally who they are, because, like, they're in a relationship. They're in, like, they want to be with women or men of this. They want to be with people of the same sex. I don't have to explain this. What am I explaining this for? But the point is that, like, with trans people, they're just trying to be themselves. And so it's really hard to just have these small characters who are trans and have it be rep, because it just doesn't work that way, because you have to have a character and to be able to understand it, they need to be in the show enough to at least mention it once, which is something you don't just mention offhand as a trans person. So it's just like, it's a difficult balance, and I get that, but it's still frustrating that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, definitely. And, Bow, someone people think, has always been kind of a fan theory that we've been thematically portraying Bow as trans, and there's the one episode where there's this whole coming out metaphor that could be interpreted as trans, and we don't end up following up on that. Really.
I don't remember if it was the end of season 4 or it was the beginning of this season, but someone says princesses to everyone in the room, and Bow says, "I'm not a princess." Like it's almost just like really strange, like that they would call them princesses when Bow's there. You know what I mean? It just feels wrong. It feels weird. Except if you view it from this lens of, like, he was in that position at some point. And
I was like, Bo, just not like a canon in the mythology, like a princess, like the other ones.
Yeah, I know. It's also, but I mean, like, it's always these, like, wink, wink implied things, not, like, actually talking about it, is what I mean.
Yeah, I would have loved a follow-up episode to that Bo's dad's episode. We see the dads, but we don't get the follow-up to the metaphor we were doing.
Yeah, the dads.
Yeah, dads were good. That's another topic. Yeah, well, I mean, how about we can go around, and any last things from the season can bring up and give last thoughts on this. Sarah, anything else from the season?
You're calling to me first. Okay. I think, like, overall, I was happy with the season. I think I've basically said most of my thoughts. Yeah, you can come back to me if I think of anything else.
Okay, you can come up. Interject at any point.
Okay.
If there's anything else, Maddie, anything else from season Bo's dads?
No, unfortunately, because I just want to mention Adora, just because I didn't get a chance to talk about her end of thing in a way I wanted to, because Catra is incredible, and, like, in earlier seasons, I really, like, connected with Catra, and I was kind of I was crying in multiple scenes with her, but it wasn't a Catra scene that hit me this season. It was actually an Adora scene when she's talking to Mara near the end. I think it was in the first half of the finale. And Mara tells her that she's allowed, just to, like, paraphrase it, like, she's telling her that she's allowed to want things. She's allowed to be a person and allowed to be selfish in some way, because she's a person like everyone else. And that hit me really hard, and I really appreciated that we came back around to talk about that with Adora. It's something that it's a message that I really connected with, and something that I had to work through as well. And I don't know, I really appreciated it, and it kind of hit me it just kind of came out of left field in terms of when they talked about it, but it definitely was built up to.
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about that Adora theme on the first podcast. We really enjoyed that, yeah. And ties into Catra's theme and stuff like that. Alex, anything else from the season?
Haven't really talked about Horde Prime that much on this podcast, but I will say that I would just say that I really appreciate the usage of the mind control, just because I think that on its own, Horde Prime, the idea of Horde Prime was menacing, but, like, not that much that I was, like, thinking it could hold a season. But the fact that you're able to turn characters that we have emotional connection to, like Mermista, but basically they picked all the princesses that I enjoyed the most, like Mermista, Scorpio. Like those hurt to see them turn to evil, and Micah as well, like because he has power of dark magic, so like, it makes sense. Like pick the most powerful people to control and split them up. I think that was just a really good decision in terms of setting up the stakes of the season, as opposed to just keeping it as horde robots. Like make it people we care about, and to the point where like all of Micah's fight scenes were like really really threatening. Like it felt like at any time that happened, something terrible could happen. And also with the Horde Prime, I saw some stuff leading up to the season of like there being some religious allegory. I think the most obvious thing is the cult-like state of the clones, where they're talking about being pure, casting out the shadows, and they're all repeating stuff. But also at the same time, like it connects with Adora. From season one, Adora was portrayed as like this person who was stuck in a cult-like atmosphere where you're only taught a certain thing, and you have to slowly figure out how to be your own person. And that comes all the way around to the very end, with like Adora having to realize that you don't have to dedicate your life to a higher goal if that's affecting your mental well-being and ignoring your own personal needs and desires. And that also comes to fruit with seeing Horde Prime show up again, where like this whole cult-like atmosphere of only one philosophy working out. So like it's interesting to see that theme of She-Ra, like from season one, will continue all the way through to the end. And yeah, Horde Prime was a solid villain. Lots of hand touching on shoulders, which classic move to assert dominance. Also used by Shadow Weaver in certain scenes. So yeah, this season was really good, and I think it just in terms of final season, it follows up. It goes hand in hand with the first season of the show very well. So I love that kind of thematic connections. Good show, and I'll miss it.
Good show and all.
Good show.
That's
good show.
That's a good closing.
I think that's how I end all series finales podcasts. Good show.
That was you about Steven Universe.
Yeah,
Maddie, I was going to very briefly ask your thoughts on Horde Prime as like a sci-fi villain.
Oh. I, from just purely like ignoring all the symbolism like of Horde Prime, I really like the way that he's portrayed. I really love the effect of him taking control of the clones and the way it's effectively communicated to the audience with the eyes gaining pupils. It's just so creepy, and it's so well done, because we keep hearing about him saying like, I know all and all that stuff. And as the viewer, you're like, oh yeah, you're just like a stuck-up guy who's in charge. But then you see his like secret power, and it's like, oh, this is really scary. This is really creepy. And then I really love the way it pays off when he takes control of Catra that one time, and the way he takes control of our original Hordak at the end when we kill Hordak Prime's body. Because it really just is like, yeah, that does nothing, guys. Killing the body does nothing.
Yeah.
So then where is he? If he's not...
He is essentially the way I've gathered it is he is more just like a consciousness that has just clones being clones with very little resolve and sapience, and he just constantly
I'll probably like upload it to the network.
Yeah, he's probably at this point more like a San Junipero upload thing.
Yeah. And then Adora performs an exorcism to get rid of him at the end.
And that's fine, whatever. But like I think the actual like promise of what he is and like what we see at the beginning is really cool. And I really think that I appreciate that this was our final villain, because he is interesting mechanically and creepy. And that's a good combination.
Yeah, I think ends up being our best straight up villain. I mean, there's a lot of like people who act as villains at various points, but Yeah. Sarah, and anything else?
Okay, I think like summarizing my feelings about the season would be like I enjoyed it overall as a show that I watched. I think I've struggled with different themes and how they were carried out in maybe ways that like other people kind of felt were good, like, you know, in terms of like Catra's integration into the new group and like Catra and Adora's relationship. I think it didn't work as well for me as it did for others, but I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing. It just, you know, everybody has different ways that they take in things. And like I think also like Adora's theme towards the end of not having to sacrifice herself, and yet she still kind of does have to sacrifice herself, even though she ultimately doesn't, because the power of her love for Catra turns her into She-Ra, and so she doesn't have to die. But it's still kind of, things just didn't quite fit neatly together the way that I wanted them to. So I guess that was kind of like, I guess like to be like a more like negative view of the season, I guess, but not to say that I didn't overall enjoy it. And then my final comment was that I wanted to say that I liked Catra's hair.
Oh my god, her hair!
Yeah, sure.
How have we not
Sure,
talked about her
Catra.
hair? They went further than the bye bob, and they're just like, what if we gave her a pixie cut? And it's like, oh, it's so gay, it's so good.
And the She-Ra ponytail, not bad either.
Oh my god. And also I loved Catra's hair in like the fake flash forward when she has like that little ponytail. It's so cute.
Yeah, that's Where's we want the slice of life
like
series to
all
see
the new
these
looks in
hairstyles.
this season are great.
I want a new show. I want his epilogue, but it's just different pictures of Adora and Catra with different hair and
Okay, new hair every episode. And
yeah,
the
What,
series.
She-Ra Future?
Yeah, She-Ra Future,
Yeah.
but every episode is a time skip, so we get new outfits every time.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Time skipping through their relationship. I think that's a show. They could do that.
That'd be fun. Like, we get to see every
that'd be
moment.
fun.
And we get to see them
Yeah.
adopting a kid and, like, being parents. It would be fun.
No, they're just
They're ding.
godparents to the imp baby.
Speaking of kids, that random moment where like Hordak just all of a sudden remembers picking up Adora as a baby, like,
And, like, a field of
okay,
flowers. It's so weird.
I vaguely remember that from season 1 or 2, but like, what does that mean here in the finale? This is weird.
Yeah.
I think it ties into what was happening thematically at the time.
I guess.
I have to rewatch it, but
Hordak is a dad.
there's a lot going on at the end. Okay, so there you go. These are our thoughts on She-Ra finale. Let us know what you thought. Overlyanimated.com, youtube.com/overlyanimated. We might discuss She-Ra more in upcoming podcasts, but this is the last planned one as of now. But regardless, she will come up in many a discussion in the future, in other shows and general topics. If people have ideas on what to talk about with She-Ra, we can do more podcasts. Definitely open to that. But it's been a lot of fun talking about She-Ra. We covered the show the whole way through. I don't know. We don't need to do this whole. We did that for Steven Universe for previous shows. We don't need to do that again. This was only a year and a half. It wasn't as much of a thing. This is too, but we did it. We did it. We made it, and it was great run with She-Ra. And thanks to everyone for being on the podcast and for hosting podcasts and stuff. Thanks to everyone for listening all the way through. If you want to continue to talk about She-Ra with us, overlyanimated.com/Discord. We're on there. And if you want to support us, you can check out patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons, especially our patron podcast, Scott. And thanks always to our patron executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, Needle, and Phonician. And we'll have more coverage of more animated shows coming up. And like I said, always we'll be discussing She-Ra, probably comparing stuff to Catra and Adora, probably comparing stuff to other characters. So subscribe to Anonymous Future Podcast. Thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.